My name is Emily Song, an ordinary college student with no ties to the entertainment industry whatsoever. If I had to stretch for a connection, it would be that my family runs a wonton shop right at the entrance of the nationally renowned film base, Film City.
I'm not exaggerating. From top-tier actors and actresses to fresh-faced newcomers whose names you wouldn't recognize, anyone who has tasted our wontons has become a repeat customer.
In these somewhat challenging times, my dear parents were extremely worried about my life away from home. They insisted I return immediately, threatening to cut off my bank card if I didn't comply.
As the saying goes, a wise person knows their limits, especially when far from home.
Alright, to be honest, I was feeling homesick too. So, on the day I received my diploma, I packed my things and headed back home.
Seriously, working for my parents is 1,000 times easier than slaving away for some corporate overlord, I thought happily, ready to embrace a laid-back life.
However, while my dreams were rosy, reality was stark. On my first night back, I hadn't even warmed my seat before my mom urged me to deliver a late-night snack to a film crew in Film City.
So, I hopped on an electric tricycle and rushed to the film base, and that's when the wheels of fate began to turn.
At the film base, a middle-aged man in a brown beret was shouting angrily at a younger man who looked equally distressed.
We told her to be here by Friday. Now the whole crew is waiting on her.
The community notice came too suddenly. She can't get in now. How about we shoot other scenes first and film hers later?
Wait for her? Can you guarantee when she'll arrive? Or should we just keep waiting indefinitely?
As I deftly distributed the wontons I brought, I eavesdropped on their argument. The man in the beret grew even more furious, his raised voice startling me. I stood at a distance, holding the last 2 servings of wontons, unsure whether to approach them.
They seem to be arguing. Should I go over now, or will I get caught in the crossfire? But who knows how long they'll argue. I can't just stand here forever. I need to get home for dinner.
As these thoughts battled in my mind, the argument suddenly ceased. I looked up and locked eyes with the man in the beret. In that instant, I saw a spark in his eyes. He then approached me with a smile that seemed to transform his face.
Are you one of our actors?
I looked around, seeing no one else, and pointed to myself. Me? I'm just here to deliver wontons.
The man in the beret looked momentarily taken aback, then scrutinized me more closely, the light in his eyes growing brighter.
Young lady, you're very pretty. Would you be interested in a cameo role in our production? He handed me a business card with a smile.
I instinctively took it and read the name Jonathan Miller in elegant gold letters on a white background. I'm not a drama student. I wouldn't want to disrupt your work.
He seemed to ignore my refusal and continued to persuade me.
There's no need for any emotional acting, just a few close-up shots. You don't need to feel pressured.
I was about to decline again when he suddenly lowered his head, looking as if he'd suffered a great injustice.
You have no idea how long I've prepared for this show. Now, with the film base suddenly locked down, the actor we had lined up can't get in. This is my life's work.
I froze, caught off guard by his sudden change in demeanor. Help, I really can't say no to someone playing the sympathy card.
As if he saw through my hesitation, he spoke again, slowly.
Of course, since I'm inviting you to help out, the payment won't disappoint you.
Thinking about the rumored 208 per day, I swallowed my refusal and finally made up my mind to speak.
Don't blame me if I don't perform well.
What a joke. I have to see if acting really pays that well. Besides, at worst, I'll just get criticized for a bad performance. If it's really 208 per day, then being criticized is something I can handle. While I was busy convincing myself, the contract was already placed in front of me, and I signed it in a daze. The moment I finished signing, I looked up and saw the middle-aged man in front of me smiling with wrinkles all over his face, and my heart skipped a beat.
Oh no. Am I being sold out?
My intuition was right. Director Jonathan Miller seemed to have gathered all the directors in the film city to watch me act.
Although the acting is a bit raw, this face is perfect for the role of the idealized love.
Of course, who do you think chose her?
Even from a distance, I could hear director Jonathan Miller's proud voice. Seeing 5 or 6 heads huddled together behind the screen, whispering about the scene I just shot, I couldn't help but feel a headache coming on.
These old hands gathering together can't mean anything good.
I immediately wanted to slip away, but director Jonathan Miller called out to me.
Emily, come here for a moment.
The same familiar smile, the same familiar tone. I swore to myself that I wouldn't be fooled by his words this time. 5 minutes later. Looking at the 5 contracts in front of me, just waiting for my signature, and the directors around me with similar smiles, I couldn't help but want to slap myself.
Why is my resolve so weak, Emily?
I had planned to go home and relax, but thanks to director Jonathan Miller, I went from one set to another, like a spinning top that couldn't stop. And all these roles had one thing in common: they were all the idealized love interests who passed away early in the male lead's life. So, in just a month, I not only worked with rising young stars but also became the beloved of veteran actors. Just when I thought my mental fortitude was strong enough to finish the last shoot and go home to rest, I discovered.
The male lead in this drama is the newly popular Michael Thompson. His acting is quite good, just follow his lead.
Director Jonathan Miller patted my shoulder encouragingly, not noticing my sudden stiff expression.
Michael Thompson. Isn't he the one who got popular after being secretly photographed on the subway and then cast as the second male lead?
Director Jonathan Miller gave me a meaningful look.
Knowing so much, are you a fan of his?
Not exactly a fan. I'm just his ex-girlfriend.
The young man in front of me, with his delicate features, pressed his thin lips together, looking at me with emotions swirling in his eyes.
Do you really have to leave?
In that moment when our eyes met, time seemed to rewind to that hot summer a year ago. I couldn't tell if he was reciting lines or really speaking to me. Feeling a rush of panic, I couldn't remember the script and could only turn away to avoid his intense gaze.
The director's voice cut through the atmosphere.
Cut. Great job, everyone.
Jonathan's enthusiastic tone interrupted the slightly awkward silence between Michael and Emily.
Michael, that was an excellent performance. You really nailed the emotional depth.
He patted Michael on the shoulder and then turned to Emily.
Emily, your reactions were spot on. Let's keep this momentum going.
Why are you being so self-absorbed? He's a rising star. He probably doesn't even remember who you are.
Emily forced a smile at the director, knowing it probably looked awkward. Michael, on the other hand, had already detached himself from the scene's emotions. He nodded with a faint smile, not even glancing her way. Determined not to embarrass herself again, Emily accepted the director's feedback confidently. Just as she was gearing up for the next scene, Michael finally looked at her.
Long time no see. You haven't changed a bit.
That day, a suspicious post started climbing the trending list.
Who is this Emily Song? Why is her name in almost every TV drama airing this summer?
The blogger attached screenshots of 6 different TV show cast lists, pointing out that Emily's name was in the special guest star section.
Where did this resourceful person come from? Which heiress is this? Starting at the top right from debut?
Countless netizens grew curious, but no matter how much they searched, they couldn't find any information.
Could she be an ordinary person? An ordinary person backed by some big shot? That's hilarious.
Amidst the online criticism, Emily had no time to care. Her phone rang, and it was her best friend Sarah.
So, you really have been acting lately? And you're working with Michael Thompson on this one? Michael Thompson? That emotionally distant guy?
Sarah's incredulous scream was followed by a barrage of questions.
Did he recognize you as his ex? Did you exchange contact info? How did he act? What's your plan? What are you thinking, Emily Song?
Emily winced, holding the phone away from her ear.
We broke up 3 years ago. I've moved on. It's just a normal collaboration.
Sarah's voice turned teasing.
Moved on, huh? Emily Song, you might fool others, but not me.
Emily couldn't help but picture Sarah's teasing face, leaving her speechless. Just then, someone knocked on her door. Still holding the phone, she opened it while continuing to vent.
Can you stop with the nonsense? I never go back to old flames.
Before she could finish, she found herself face to face with a handsome man, her words trailing off. Only Sarah's incessant chatter remained on the other end of the line.
So who have you been waiting for these 3 years? Why didn't you clear up the misunderstanding with Michael back then?
In the midst of silence, Sarah Mitchell's voice stood out abruptly. I fumbled to press the hang up button and looked up to meet Michael Thompson's inquisitive gaze.
What misunderstanding?
Michael's brows furrowed slightly, his voice carrying a hint of an unspoken emotion. For a moment, I couldn't think of a good excuse and could only pretend not to understand, trying to change the subject.
Why are you here? Aren't you afraid of the paparazzi taking photos and coming up with headlines like Michael Thompson harasses female co-star late at night?
As I spoke, I realized something was off, my face stiffened, and I swallowed the rest of my words. Oh no, Michael and I aren't exactly on joking terms right now, are we?
Afraid? Yes, so are you going to let me in, or are you waiting for the paparazzi to get some good shots for publicity, Ms. Song?
He emphasized Ms. Song with a peculiar tone, and I inexplicably sensed a bit of gritted teeth in his voice. But seeing the man in front of me remain calm, I felt ridiculous for overanalyzing his every expression like I used to do with reading comprehension exercises. Lost in thought, I let Michael into the room. By the time I realized it, he was already sitting across from me, his right index finger tapping rhythmically on the table. Even Michael himself might not have noticed this subconscious habit of his when he's deep in thought. We both had our own agendas, and the atmosphere became tense.
I came to discuss the scenes we need to shoot tomorrow.
Oh, it's about the scenes. Sure, which scene would you like to go over, Mr. Thompson?
Michael looked at me seriously, his eyes filled with an unreadable anticipation.
Let's go over the part before the final farewell.
Farewell? I tilted my head, trying to recall if there was such a scene in the script.
Why the sudden separation? Did I do something wrong?
My thoughts drifted back to that summer, under the dormitory building, when Michael had asked the same question. What did I say back then? No, I just realized we're not suitable for each other. The image of Michael with reddened eyes from my memory overlapped with the composed Michael in front of me, and I suddenly didn't know how to respond.
Is this part in the script?
I instinctively lowered my head to avoid his gaze. Just as I was about to say I'd go get the script, Michael suddenly leaned in, closing the distance between us. I could almost feel the warmth of his breath.
Can you give me a chance to explain what happened back then?
Michael and I were once the envy of everyone in college, a model couple. Those days were pure joy, and holding his hand while wandering aimlessly around campus made me incredibly happy. Even though we were just ordinary kids, I always felt that meeting Michael and being with him was a highlight in my otherwise mundane life. We both took our relationship very seriously, and we had once planned our future together, striving to build a small home for the two of us. Until that summer, when Michael suddenly stopped replying for long periods, and whenever I asked what was going on, he would always avoid answering. I could feel him getting busier, but I had no idea what he was busy with. Friends said he just didn't like me as much anymore or had met someone he liked more. I didn't believe it. No one knew Michael better than I did. He wasn't that kind of person. Just as I mustered the courage to talk to him seriously, Sarah Mitchell sent me a link to a Weibo post. It was the official announcement of a new artist signed by Star Entertainment. And there was a face I knew all too well. It was Michael Thompson. Emily's tone turned cold as she brought up the past.
What's there to explain? It's just that you didn't like me that much anymore.
Michael Thompson's face stiffened, his smile becoming bitter.
It's not like that.
He paused, took a deep breath, and continued.
Back then, just before graduation, my dad was diagnosed with a severe illness and was suddenly hospitalized. My mom had never managed the company and knew nothing about the business. Funds couldn't be turned around, and we owed a lot of money. The whole family was in chaos.
Emily was stunned. These were things she had never heard before.
On one side were my dad's high medical expenses, and on the other were the creditors constantly pressing us. I had no choice but to sign with that entertainment company. It was like a contract of servitude, just to get an advance to deal with the emergency.
His voice carried a sense of acceptance, devoid of any negative emotions, but it made Emily's heart clench tightly.
Why didn't you tell me?
She realized her voice was dry, almost breaking. Michael gently raised a smile, just like the one she used to love the most.
I knew your major had opportunities for studying abroad, and I remembered you telling me you wanted to strive for it. If I had told you about these troubles, you would have been busy with me and delayed your important matters. Emily, I didn't want to be a stumbling block on your path to your dreams.
Tears welled up in her eyes as she clenched her fists and hit Michael several times, her voice tinged with sobs.
How could you be so self-righteous? Not telling me anything, disappearing for years. What if I ended up with someone else?
Michael gently pulled her into his arms.
Even if that happened, I would still be your strong support. Emily, I want to be your forever solid support, always.
That night, Michael and Emily talked for a long time, sharing everything that had happened during the years they missed each other. The consequence of talking all night was almost being late for filming in the morning. When Emily hurriedly arrived at the set, she felt something was different but couldn't pinpoint what it was.
Do I have toothpaste on my face today?
While pondering, the makeup artist leaned in and whispered.
Miss Song, they say you're the daughter of the richest man in Binching. Is that true?
Emily looked at her in shock, her mouth wide enough to fit an egg.
I'm not, don't talk nonsense.
She waved her hands frantically, denying it repeatedly, only to find the makeup artist's gaze becoming more profound. Emily steadied herself, just about to speak again, when she saw Michael and his assistant carrying a bunch of milk teas, distributing them to the staff. Seeing Michael walking towards her with a milk tea, she frantically signaled him to tone it down a bit. Michael, as if on a 2G network, didn't receive her signal. He stood to her right, quietly observing her in the mirror, his smile harder to suppress than an AK. Seeing the makeup artist looking back and forth between Michael and Emily with suspicion, she quickly forced a polite smile.
Mr. Thompson, are you here to give us milk tea?
But Michael didn't follow the script. He seemed to snap out of a trance, very naturally poked the straw into the milk tea, handed it to her mouth, and looked at her with sincere, gentle eyes.
Very beautiful.
There are so many staff members on set. As if I could already foresee the scene of being harshly criticized by netizens, I glared at Michael Thompson, thinking that there was no way to salvage the situation now. I might as well take a sip of the milk tea at my lips.
Peach flavored with extra pulp, 3/4 sugar, no ice, my favorite. He remembered, how sweet, hee hee.
Suddenly, a loud voice broke the stillness.
Breaking news, folks. Michael Thompson has compromised himself for Emily Song's sake.
This revelation caused quite a stir. Since his debut, Michael Thompson had always been known for his gentle and steady demeanor. Now, at the peak of his career, a whistleblower claimed he was cozying up to powerful figures, sparking heated discussions.
Michael Thompson is a top star with plenty of resources. Why would he need to cozy up to anyone?
So Emily Song must have some serious backing, right?
Don't believe everything you read online, folks. If that's the case, then Michael Thompson is chasing after me too.
Exactly. Because of this post, do you know how long Michael Thompson will have to comfort me tonight?
As the buzz around the Emily Song x Michael Thompson topic continued to grow, curious netizens tried to find my personal social media account but came up empty-handed.
No way. Does this little princess just focus on acting without engaging in social media?
The netizens' curiosity reached its peak, and director Jonathan Miller urged me to quickly create a social media account.
Emily, create a social media account now. The marketing team needs to announce your role while the buzz is still hot.
Obediently, I created a new social media account. The next second, the official account posted my character's look and tagged me in the comments, captioning it, "White Moonlight."
Honestly, I was ready to criticize, but her looks, I can't bring myself to do it.
This is exactly what I imagine White Moonlight to look like. Delicate features, gentle demeanor, and a hint of coolness in her eyes. Ah, I can totally support her.
How can she look like a soft, white bun and still be so beautiful? I'm at a loss for words. A beautiful bun. Sob, sob.
Even though I usually dislike people who get roles through connections, I have to admit, she fits the role perfectly.
Director Jonathan Miller was pleased as he watched the flood of positive comments, a hint of pride in his voice.
See, I have an eye for talent. If she wasn't good-looking and fitting for the role, would I have gone to such lengths to, sign her?
Suddenly, his expression changed as he continued scrolling. His brows furrowed more and more.
Absurd. This is absolutely absurd. They're saying you're a product of connections and that my standards for casting are declining.
Director Jonathan Miller slammed his phone on the table in frustration, looking just like he did the first time I saw him angry. I quickly put down my script to comfort him.
It's okay, director. I have a strong mindset. Being criticized.
Being criticized is one thing, but dragging me into it is unacceptable.
I was speechless, and the little bit of gratitude I felt vanished instantly. I watched as director Jonathan Miller used his verified Weibo account to post a clarification.
Declining standards? During her time filming, we didn't even get a single wonton from her family. How can she be considered a product of connections?
Even through the screen, you could feel the director's anger conveyed through multiple exclamation marks. However, the netizens' reactions were unexpected. They burst into laughter and the conversation took a different turn.
So she's a wonton connection. Ha 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 ha.
Director Miller's style is as adorable as ever, ha ha ha.
Am I the only one who noticed that this so-called princess comes from a family that runs a wonton shop? I remember hearing something similar before.
You're not wrong. I remember that too. It was mocked as a ridiculous rumor back then.
Check out at Who Doesn't T Live to Eat More.
The netizens, like a well-trained gossip squad, followed the lead and dug up my small account. Meanwhile, I was filming a scene with Michael Thompson, completely unaware of what was happening. When I finally got my phone back, the first thing I saw was a barrage of 7 or 8 Weibo links sent by Sarah Mitchell, accompanied by a simple yet intimidating smiley face emoji.
What could have upset Sarah again?
I quickly clicked on the Weibo links to find out the reason and make amends. I opened the first, the second, the third. My smile gradually faded.
Oh no, why are all these posts from my secret Weibo account?
Can someone tell me why there are so many comments from netizens? The thought of my overly sentimental posts being dragged out and scrutinized made me want to disappear. One can endure many things, but social embarrassment is unbearable. I hurriedly switched to my secret account and frantically tried to delete my posts, but it was too late. Enthusiastic netizens had already taken screenshots of my Weibo content, and they even organized a Guess the Event from the content, summarizing Emily Song's adolescent drama contest.
Doesn't anyone else think Emily Song's college romance was really sweet? Her words really resonate with me.
You're not alone. I can feel her happiness through the screen.
How bad can someone who knows how to appreciate happiness be? I think Emily Song is quite adorable.
Why do her words feel so familiar to me?
Maybe it's the scenarios? As an old fan of Michael Thompson, no joke, I feel like I've seen all of Emily Song's Weibo posts on Peachy Romance.
Ladies, I have a bold guess.
I know you're bold, but hold off on guessing because I also think.
Reading the increasing number of comments, I felt like my privacy was being exposed and scrutinized under the sun for 49 days. Are they all reincarnations of Sherlock Holmes? After work, I lazily leaned against Michael Thompson's chest. After the nth time of pretending to glance at him unintentionally, I finally couldn't help but ask.
Don't you have anything to ask?
I do want to ask, but it depends on whether you're willing to tell me, my dear.
Michael Thompson smiled warmly, lowered his head, and gently kissed my forehead, his eyes filled with unending tenderness. I hesitated for a long time, thinking that at the rate netizens were digging, it was only a matter of time before they pieced together the complete timeline. It was better to come clean myself.
Actually, the Peachy Romance novel you starred in was written by me.
After saying that, I quickly glanced at Michael Thompson, only to be disappointed. He didn't show any surprise at all. Seeing my frustrated expression, Michael Thompson chuckled and ruffled my hair, his voice filled with barely suppressed laughter.
Of course I knew, silly. With so many of our shared memories, how could I not recognize your writing?
I looked up in astonishment, then thought it through and realized it made sense.
So you were sure I wouldn't forget you, and that's why you didn't contact me for 3 years, right?
I pretended to scold him and playfully hit Michael Thompson, but he took my face in his hands seriously.
No, it's not like that. That winter, I went abroad to find you.
I was taken aback, seeing Michael Thompson recalling something unpleasant, his brows furrowed, his voice tinged with bitterness.
I saw a guy holding flowers outside your dorm, and you rushed down without even putting on your coat properly. He called you Miss Song. I thought you were in a relationship.
I followed his words and recalled the incident. It did seem familiar.
But that wasn't for me. That was my roommate's boyfriend. They had a fight that day, and he asked me to bring the flowers upstairs to apologize.
Michael Thompson looked equally surprised. We stared at each other, then suddenly burst into laughter. Such misunderstandings, which could have been cleared up with a few words, had cost us so many years. Michael Thompson pulled me back into his arms,